In this video, we will see how we can write a C program to mimic the behavior of a banking system. Here, we will have the options to view, deposit, and withdraw balance. Now, this program is for beginners where they can learn about functions, passing values by using pointers, etc. Now, once we build this program, when we run this, it will display a menu like this, and it will display these options. Now, as a user, we have to select any of this. For example, if I enter 1 here in order to view balance, it will display the balance that is present in my account. And then if I want to deposit funds, then I have to press 2. Then I have to enter the amount that I want to deposit. And after that, if I want to withdraw the funds, I have an option. I will be able to enter the amount that I want to withdraw. If that balance is available in my account, then it will say you have withdrawn the balance. And then finally, in order to exit, we have to enter a particular choice and it will exit the program. Now let us see how we can build this program from scratch. So here, the first thing that we do is we will include the stdio.h header file, because in this program, we want to use the functions like printf and scanf. And then we will have the main function, which will be the entry point of our program from our perspective. And in the end of this main function, we will return a value of 0, indicating to the operating system that this program ran without any issue. Now, the next thing that we do is we will declare the variables that we want to use in this program. Now, since this program is about a banking system, we need a variable for storing the user's balance. So here I will take the double data type and I will call the variable as balance, and I will initialize this variable with a value of 0. Now after that, what we have to do is we have to build the menu where different options are displayed to the user. And in order to take the choice that the user has made by looking at the menu, we need a variable for storing that value. Here I will take unsigned short and I will say choice. Now why I have chosen the data type short? That's because this variable will not contain a large value, and that's why we don't need integer type. We can go with the short data type. And then why I have chosen unsigned is in the menu we will display 0 or positive number options. All right, now after that we have to build the menu. So here we will use the do while loop. So here we will have the do part, and then we will have the menu, and after that in the end we will have the while condition. So here, as long as this condition that we provide in this while is true, this loop will continuously run. Now here in this do block, what we do is we will display the menu. So we will have a menu like this. First, it will say welcome to the bank. If you want, you guys can give a name for your bank, and then we will display these options. The first option is for viewing the balance. User has to enter 1. Second option is for depositing funds. Third option is for withdrawing the funds. The fourth option is to exit the program. And then we will use the printf function in here, and we will ask the user to enter his choice. He can enter any one of the options in here. Now after that, we will use the scanf function, and we will read the value from the user input. So since this choice variable is of type unsigned short integer, we use the format specifier %HU in order to read that value. And then we have to provide where we want to save the choice. We want to store that in this choice variable. So here with the scanf function, we have to provide the address of this choice variable. Okay, now how long we want this loop to run, that will depend on the choice that the user has entered. So here in this menu, we can see that if the user is going to enter a choice of 4, that means he wants to exit the program. So here in the condition for this do while, we will write as long as user enters a choice which is not equal to 4, we want to continuously run this loop. So here we will write the condition as choice not equal to 4. So as long as user enters a value other than 4, this loop will run. It will present this menu again and again. Now here, after taking the user input, what we want to do, we want to perform the specific operation depending on the user's choice. For that, what we do is we will use the switch statement, and here the switch statement condition will be choice. That is the choice that the user has entered. Now, depending on the user's choice and the menu that we have here, we have to have the case conditions for all these choices. So here we will have case 1, and this case is for the option 1, which is for viewing the balance. So here we will say view balance, and then once we are done with that, we will break this case. Now similarly, what we have to do is we have to construct the case for all these choices. So after this case 1, we will have case 2, and this case 2 is for depositing the funds. So here I will say deposit funds. We will implement all these things later, and then after that we will break the switch. So we will use break here, and then we will have the case 3, and this case 3 is for withdrawing the funds. So here I will say withdraw funds, and after that we will have the break statement to come out of this switch statement, and after that we will have the case 4, and when the user is going to enter the value 4 here, it means that he wants to exit this program. So what we do is we will display a message, something like thank you for using the banking system or something like that. So now here for this case value 4, we will say thank you for using the banking system, goodbye, and then we will have the break statement. And after that, finally, we will have a default case, and this default case is used whenever user enters a value which is other than the case values that we have mentioned here. So here in this default block, we will say invalid choice, please enter a valid option. Now here we don't have to use the break statement in this default block because this is the end of this switch statement, and that's why the break statement is not required. If for some reason the choice falls in the default case, then after executing this statement, the control will come out of the switch statement, so we don't have to use the break here. Now what we have done here right now is we have built the skeleton of this program. Now what I will do is I will run this program just to make sure that we have done everything. So here when I run this program, we can see that it displays the message welcome to the bank, view balance, deposit funds, withdraw funds, exit. Now we will check the functionality of this menu. Now if I enter 1 here, nothing happens because we haven't implemented the part of viewing the balance. It will just display the menu again. That is because of the do while loop condition that we have set. So if I enter 2 or 3, same thing happens, it will display the menu. But if I enter a value other than the numbers mentioned in here, for example, let us say I enter 9 here, then it says invalid choice, please select a valid option. This message is appearing from the default block, and then again it displays this menu. Now here, if the user wants to exit the program, he has to enter this 4. So I will specify 4 here. After that, if I hit the enter key, now you guys can see it says thank you for using the banking system, goodbye, and the program terminates. So here what we have done is we have implemented this basic structure of this program. Now what we have to do is we have to implement the logic for viewing the balance, depositing the funds, and withdrawing the funds. So what we do right now is we will implement the view balance. So what I will do is I will create a function which will display the balance that we have in our account. Now, in order to create that function, what I will do is I will go before this main function and I will define that function. So here, this function will not return any value. So the data type will be void, and then I will name the function as view balance. Now this function here, it will take a value and it will display that. In this case, it will be the balance of the user. So here I will say double balance, and in this function, we just want to display the value that we get for this balance variable. So I will say something like this: your current balance is, and we will display this value. Now here for the currency, I have used the dollar symbol. If you want, you guys can use any other currency symbol here. Okay, so straightforward function, it will just display the value it gets for this balance variable. Now what we have to do is we have to call this function whenever the user enters the choice of 1. So here in this case 1, I will call this function. So it will be view balance, and we have to pass in a value, and that value will be the balance variable which contains the user's balance. Now this was a very simple function that we were able to implement. Now the next functionality that we have to implement here is for depositing the funds. So what we want to do is we want to create a function which will ask the user to enter the amount that he wants to deposit. It will read that value and then it will add to the user's balance. So again, before this main function, we will define that deposit funds function. Again, this function here, it will not return any value. I will call this function as deposit funds. And now how we can implement this function. Now what we want to do is when we call this deposit funds function, it has to read the value that the user wants to deposit, and then it has to check whether the user has entered a proper value, and then it has to add that value that the user entered to the balance. The user's account balance is defined inside this main function. So what we do is we will use the pointers. This main function will provide the address of the balance variable to this deposit funds function, and because of that, the deposit funds function will be able to modify that value. So here we will write double, and then we will use the pointer, and then we will have the balance. So now what happens here is the deposit funds function will get the memory address of this balance variable so that it can modify that value. If we look at this view balance, then for the view balance function, we are not using the pointers. The reason for that is here we just have to display whatever the value that we get for the balance. We are not going to modify the balance variable which is defined inside the main function. But the deposit funds function has to modify the balance variable which is defined inside the main function, and that's why we're using the pointer here. Now how we can implement this deposit funds function. So the first thing that we do is we will define a variable. Let us say deposit. So it will be double deposit. So what we do is we will ask the user to enter the amount that he wants to deposit, and we will read that and store that in this deposit variable. So here what I will do, I will use the printf function and I will ask the user to enter the amount that he wants to deposit, and then we will use the scanf function. We will read the value and we will store that in this deposit variable. I just misspelled this deposit. I will correct that. Now here, since the value that we are reading for this deposit amount is of type double, we are using the format specifier %LF. This is important. And now what we have is we have the amount that the user wants to deposit. Now what we have to do is we have to check whether the user has entered a proper value. For example, the user can enter a negative number. We can't deposit that. User can enter a value of 0. There is no point in depositing a value of 0. We have to check for that. So here we will use the if conditional statement and we will check whether the deposit value that the user has entered is greater than 0. In that case, what we want to do, we want to deposit the value. If the user is entered a value which is 0 or a value less than 0, then we have to display an appropriate message. So here in this case, I will say invalid deposit amount, please try again. So if the user is going to enter a value which is greater than 0, we will deposit that. Otherwise, we will display this particular message. Now, if the user is going to enter a value which is greater than 0, a proper amount that he wants to deposit, then what we have to do in this program? We have to update the user's balance. So first we will access the balance variable. So what happens here is we get the memory address for this pointer balance. With this star balance, we are accessing that and we want to alter that value. So here we will write plus equal to and then the deposit amount. So whatever the balance which is there in the user's account, that will be updated with the deposit amount. If the user is containing, let us say $100, and if he deposits $20, then it will update the user's balance to $120. And after that, what we'll do is we will display a message, something like this. We will say deposited this amount and your new balance is this amount. So here we are displaying the value that the user has deposited and the updated balance. Okay, now what we have done here is we have implemented this deposit funds function. What we have to do is we have to call this function when the user wants to deposit the amount. So here when the user is going to enter a choice of 2, it means he wants to deposit the funds. So we will call that function here in this case 2. So it will be deposit funds, and here this deposit funds takes the memory address of the balance variable, and that's why we have to provide the address of this balance variable. So it will be address of operator and then the variable name, which is balance. Now again, if you look at this view balance here, we are not altering the value of the balance variable in this view balance function, and that's why we are just passing the value. In this deposit funds function, we are altering the value of this balance variable, and that's why we are providing the memory address so that this deposit funds function can modify this balance variable's value. Now we will implement the withdraw funds section. So again, what we do is we will create a function to implement the withdraw funds section. So before the implementation of this main function, we will define the withdraw funds function. Again, this function will not return any value, so it will be void data type. And then we call this function as withdraw funds. And here, similar to the deposit funds, when a user withdraws the funds, his balance will be updated. So in order to update the user's balance, we have to get the memory address of the user's balance variable. So this function will take the memory address of a variable. So it will be double and then a pointer to the balance variable. And now what we have to do is we have to ask the user how much account you want to withdraw, and if the user enters a proper amount, if that amount is available in his balance, we can allow the user to withdraw the balance. Otherwise, we have to display a message. If the user has entered proper amount, an amount which he has in his bank account, then we can allow the user to withdraw. And once the withdrawal happens, we have to update the user's balance. The first thing that we do is we will define a variable for storing the value that the user wants to withdraw. So again, I will take the double data type. I will call this variable as withdrawal, and after that we will ask the user to enter the amount that he wants to withdraw. So here I will use the printf function and I will display this message, enter the amount to withdraw, and after that the user will enter a value. We have to read that. So here I will use the scanf function and I will read the value from the user and I will store that in this variable. Again, remember, since we are reading a value of type double here, we use the format specifier %lf. Now we have the amount that the user wants to withdraw, and now what we have to do is we have to check whether user has that amount in his account that he wants to withdraw, and also we have to check whether the user has entered a proper value. For example, user can enter a value of 0 or a negative number, so there is no point of withdrawing 0 or negative number. We have to check for that. Now here what we do is we will check whether the user has entered a value which is 0 or a negative number. So here I will use the if conditional statement and I will check whether the value entered for the withdrawal is less than or equal to 0. In that case, what we want to do is we want to display a message stating that you have to enter proper amount in order to withdraw. So here I will say invalid withdrawal amount, please try again. Now if the user has entered a value which is greater than 0, we have to check whether the withdrawal amount is less than the balance that the user has in his bank account. For that we will have the else if, and here in this case we will check whether the withdrawal amount that the user has entered is greater than the balance that he has in his bank account. So here we are using this star, which is a pointer dereferencing operator, and by using this we are getting the balance of the user and we are checking whether this withdrawal amount is greater than the balance that the user has in his account. In that case we will display a message insufficient balance, and then we will display the balance that the user has in his account. Now after that we will have the else part. If we come to this else part, it means that user has entered a proper value that he wants to withdraw, a value which is not 0 or a negative number, and then the user has entered an amount which is less than the balance that he has in his bank account. So what we can do, we can allow the withdrawal. So here we will allow the withdrawal, and what we have to do is we have to update the balance that the user has in his account balance. So here we will write balance minus equal to and then the withdrawal amount, and after that we will display a message stating that you have withdrawn successfully. So here we will say you have withdrawn this amount and your new balance is this amount. So once the user has entered the proper amount, we will update the user's balance. We will subtract the withdrawal amount from the balance, and then we will display you have withdrawn this much amount and this is your new balance. So now what we have done is we have implemented this withdraw funds function. The next thing that we have to do is we have to call this function whenever the user wants to withdraw. So here in this switch statement, in the case 3, the third option is for withdrawing the funds. We have to call that function. So it will be withdraw funds, and here again this withdraw funds function takes the memory address of this balance variable as the argument, and that's why we will provide that. So it will be address of this balance variable. So now what we have done is we have written this program. Now what we do is we will run this program. So here it says welcome to the bank, view balance, deposit funds, withdraw funds and exit. I will say view balance. It says your balance is 0.0, and then again it will display the menu. This time I will try to withdraw, so I will enter the choice of 3, and now it says enter the amount to withdraw. I will say $10. Now it says insufficient balance, your current balance is 0.0. So this time I will go for depositing the funds, so I will enter the choice of 2, and it says enter the amount to deposit. I will say $100. Now it says deposited $100, your new balance is $100, and then it will display the menu. This time I will go for view balance. Now it says your current balance is $100, and then it displays the menu. And here this time I will try to withdraw. I will enter 3 and enter the amount. I will enter $50, and now once I enter that, it says withdrawn $50, your new balance is $50. So the program is working. In order to exit, I will enter 4, and that's it. The program terminates. Now here, whenever we run this program, the initial balance is 0. There is no way we are storing the user's balance in the in some database or in some file. We are not implementing that. If you want, you can implement that functionality as the exercise. So this is it, guys, for this particular video. Thank you for watching. If you like the video, hit the like button. If you don't like it, hit the dislike button. If you have anything to say, write that in the comment box. For more tutorials, subscribe to the channel.